Hello and welcome to Firstpost Spotlight, where we bring you stories that matter to you from all across the world. From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, we shed light on issues that shape our world. I am Joshua Barnes, live from the Firstpost studios. Let's first begin with the top headlines. Syrian President Ahmed al-Sharaa is in Washington to meet US President Donald Trump, marking the first official visit by a Syrian head of state to the United States since 1946. South Korean prosecutors indict former President Yoon Suk-yeol for allegedly aiding the enemy by ordering drone flights over North Korea to justify martial law. The Kremlin denies reports of a rift between President Vladimir Putin and Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov after the diplomat's public absence and a cancelled summit with US President Donald Trump fuel speculation. Ukraine's anti-corruption agency launches major raids targeting the energy sector following months of political infighting and public backlash over President Zelensky's attempt to curb the independence of key watchdogs. And gold prices rise 2% to a two-week high as weak US economic data boosts expectations of a Federal Reserve rate cut next month and a softer dollar supports bullion. Let's first begin with India. Happiness can be hard to define, but Mumbai seems to have cracked the code. India's financial capital has been crowned Asia's happiest city in the Time Out City Life Index 2025, outshining Beijing, Shanghai and Hanoi. The survey asked over 18,000 residents across Asia to rate their cities on culture, nightlife, food, quality of life and overall happiness. And Mumbai came out on top. 94% said the city makes them happy. 89% said they feel happier when they're here rather than anywhere else. And 88% think their fellow residents radiate positivity. According to the report, the city's high ranking stems from its unstoppable energy, a mix of opportunity, community and optimism that thrives despite the chaos. The blend of vibrant streets, a booming creative economy and unmatched food culture keeps Mumbai in perpetual motion and in good spirits. Known as the City of Dreams, Mumbai is where millions arrive chasing love, fame and success and often find a sense of belonging along the way. From startups to studios, from seaside stalls to skyscrapers, the city's heartbeat lies in its relentless pursuit of aspiration. It's also home to Bollywood, India's iconic Hindi film industry that has shaped global entertainment and turned Mumbai into a cultural powerhouse. Global stars like Shah Rukh Khan and Priyanka Chopra once began their journeys here, making Mumbai the first stop for anyone seeking to become a global icon. Following Mumbai, Beijing and Shanghai ranked second and third with 93% and 92% of residents reporting happiness. Both Chinese megacities earned praise for their convenience, safety and culture, reflecting the rise of urban optimism in East Asia. Chiang Mai and Hanoi completed the top five. Their residents cited greenery, serenity and close-knit communities as reasons for their happiness, offering a slower, more balanced lifestyle compared to Asia's bustling capitals. Meanwhile, not every global hub shared the same cheer. Cities like Tokyo, Seoul and Singapore lagged behind, with long hours and mounting urban pressure impacting the quality of life. Proof that success doesn't always translate to satisfaction. The 10 happiest cities in Asia, according to Time Out 2025, are Mumbai in first, then Beijing, Shanghai, Chiang Mai, Hanoi, Jakarta, Hong Kong, Bangkok, Singapore, and then finally Seoul. Mumbai's dominance on the list reflects more than numbers. It mirrors the pulse of a city that finds joy in its own chaos. From its humble 7-island origin to a global powerhouse, Mumbai continues to defy definitions, now not just as India's financial heart, but as Asia's happiest city. A place where drive meets delight, and every moment, no matter how busy, beats to the rhythm of resilience. For our next story, let's talk about the Indian capital. Parents, children and protesters gathered at India Gate as part of the Clean Air protest, demanding urgent action on the capital's pollution emergency. Protesters were seen holding placards. One read, "I miss breathing," and another, "Help us breathe." Many parents brought their children along, urging authorities to protect their future from the city's worsening air emergency. Most parts of the city recorded an AQI between 300 and 400, indicating hazardous air quality. Protesters also demanded an independent air regulator and real-time pollution data from authorities. Delhi recorded an overall AQI of 370 at 4 p.m. on Sunday. Every year, the capital's pollution crisis turns into a major challenge for city dwellers. Some reports even said that private monitors had recorded an AQI as high as 999 in several locations. On Monday, the capital was again choked under an intense blanket of smog as cooler temperatures triggered another spike in toxic air. Experts warned that breathing the city's toxic air could damage the lungs, skin, hair, bones, and even fertility in some cases. Several demonstrators were detained by local police. Officials cited the lack of prior permission and road blockages as the reasons for the detentions. Protesters claimed that clean air was a fundamental right under Article 21.
एयर पोल्यूशन के अगेंस्ट अपनी प्रोटेस्ट रेज करने आया हूँ, यही मेरा पर्पस है यहाँ, ताकि हमारी उम्मीद यही है कि नॉन वायलेंट प्रोटेस्ट रहे, जिससे अथॉरिटीज़ फाइनली इस पर कुछ कार्रवाई करें, जिससे एयर पोल्यूशन ना कि दिल्ली में बट सारे नॉर्थ इंडिया में इसमें कुछ सुधार हो, इस पर कुछ एक्शन लिया जाए ताकि इसमें कुछ सुधार हो और ताकि आगे की पीढ़ियों के लिए इससे मदद मिले.
And doctors have reported a 60% rise in cases of respiratory illnesses like asthma and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Most people reported milder symptoms such as coughing, sore throats, itchy red eyes and dry, flaky skin. However, top pulmonologists have also advised people to leave Delhi for 6 to 8 weeks to protect themselves, especially those with chronic lung or heart disease. The government has attempted to address the issue using technological measures, including cloud seeding, a weather modification technique that enhances rainfall by dispersing substances into clouds. However, the attempt failed due to low moisture levels. Humidity remained between 10 and 15%, far below the required 50 to 60% for successful trials. Amid worsening air quality, 91 public and private buildings in Delhi installed anti-smog guns. Delhi turns into a gas chamber every winter, thanks to cooler air which traps microparticles near the ground, and a combination of traffic emissions and stubble burning that make conditions worse. The story is no longer just about pollution. It's about survival. As Delhi's skyline stays grey, citizens are turning up the pressure. We'll continue to keep track of this developing story. Moving on now to West Asia. Saudi Arabia is reshaping its real estate landscape, and this time it's the foreign buyers who will feel the biggest impact. Beginning in January 2026, foreigners in Saudi Arabia will face new restrictions on property ownership under a regulation announced by the country's Real Estate General Authority, or REGA. According to reports, the rule will allow only registered ownership and will require full disclosure of all information from foreign buyers. The change stems from the new law on real estate ownership by non-Saudis, which was approved in July of this year. The law introduces a combined 10% levy in the form of fees and taxes on all properties owned by foreigners. This means that foreign investment in real estate will now be more closely monitored and taxed, with clear boundaries set on where and how such ownership can take place. Under the new system, 5 categories will be standing, and the situation is one that is developing. This means that foreign investment in real estate will now be more closely monitored and taxed, with clear boundaries set on where and how much ownership can take place. Under the new system, 5 categories of what authorities label as non-Saudis will be eligible to purchase property in Saudi Arabia. These include foreign individuals, foreign companies, Saudi companies with foreign shareholders, non-profit entities, and diplomatic missions. However, these groups will not have blanket access across the kingdom. They will be allowed to own residential or commercial property only within specific zones that will be designated by Rega. Detailed maps of these designated ownership zones are expected to be released soon, covering major urban centres such as Riyadh, Jeddah, Makkah, Medina, and other governorates. The maps will outline the permissible ownership ratios, type of property that can be purchased, and grace periods for compliance. All ownership will still remain subject to strict regulatory procedures, as outlined in the executive regulations accompanying the law. The broader goal behind this policy is to ensure that foreign investment supports Saudi Arabia's national priorities, not distorts them. Any violations of these rules will carry serious consequences. The authority has warned that properties acquired through false declarations will be confiscated and publicly auctioned, and offenders could face up to 10 million Saudi riyals in fines, or around $2.7 million. This entire reform aligns with Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030, the country's ambitious plan to diversify its economy beyond oil. The law defines a non-Saudi broadly, not just as individuals, but also foreign companies, organisations and non-profits, whether or not they are based in the kingdom. However, one area remains largely off limits: the holy cities of Mecca and Medina. Only Muslim foreigners and Saudi-based companies with foreign ownership may be granted limited rights in these cities, and even those will come with stringent conditions yet to be detailed. So while the doors of Saudi real estates are opening wider than before, they're opening with new locks, keys and boundaries. And as 2026 approaches, the world will be watching closely to see just who gets access and how tightly those gates will remain guarded. And our final story is from the Philippines. A typhoon named Fung-Wong hit the region and left a trail of destruction. At least 5 people died, and more than 1 million people were evacuated. The weakening of the typhoon has now swept out of the Philippines and into the South China Sea. The storm, known locally as Uwan, struck the northeast province of Aurora late on Sunday as a super typhoon. It brought torrential rain and winds that tore down power lines, uprooted trees, and triggered landslides across much of the Luzon island, including parts of the capital, Manila.
Throughout my whole life, throughout those years I stayed here, I can say this is the strongest typhoon we've experienced, Typhoon Uwan. The waters in Chico River rose very high. Many houses got damaged.
Rescue teams in Aurora province said they were only beginning to assess the extent of the damage after heavy rains, and high floodwaters made it impossible to mobilise overnight. In nearby Dingulang, powerful waves had smashed dozens of coastal homes and fishing boats. Authorities confirmed at least 5 deaths. 1 woman was crushed beneath debris while attempting to evacuate in Samar province, and another person drowned in a flash flood in Caguanes, in Cagayan province. Evacuees said they had no choice but to flee. Defence officials said that over 1.4 million people were evacuated nationwide as the storm approached. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. placed the country under a state of emergency following the compounded devastation from both typhoons. Pope Leo also offered prayers for the people of the Philippines.
My thoughts are with the people of the Philippines affected by a violent typhoon. I pray for the deceased and their families, for the injured and displaced.
The State Weather Bureau said Fung-Wong's centre was last spotted moving northwest over the South China Sea and heading towards Taiwan, continuing to weaken as it moved over cooler waters. At its peak, the super typhoon packed sustained winds of 185 kilometres per hour, with gusts of up to 230 kilometres per hour. This was powerful enough to cover nearly 2/3 of the Philippine peninsula with its massive 1,600 kilometre wide wind and rain band. It was the second major storm to batter the country in a week, following Typhoon Kalmaegi, which claimed at least 224 lives in the central Philippines towards Vietnam, where it killed 5 more. The Philippines, one of the world's most disaster-prone nations, is struck by around 20 typhoons every year and frequently endures earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. As Fung-Wong moves away, the country is left grappling with widespread flooding, damaged infrastructure, and the daunting task of rebuilding, yet again. That's all we have on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Until then, thank you for watching.
From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, shedding light on the world's top headlines, detailed analysis on the stories that matter the most to you. Catch it all on Spotlight at 6 p.m. India time and 12:30 GMT, only on Firstpost.